Hey guys, Smitty here, thanks for tuning in and welcome back. Per usual, today we're going to be covering my most recent build, the Small Plains house, a little more in detail. So we'll be doing a full walkthrough to give you guys a better sense of the build, and I'll give some of my thoughts on its different elements. But if you guys want to see the build process of this and haven't already, make sure you check out my last video where I show a time lapse of the build process. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoy it, but without further ado, grab a snack, grab a drink, and let's get right into it. Alright, so the Plains house. I actually haven't done a ton of builds in the Plains, which is a shame because I do enjoy this biome from a purely aesthetic / building standpoint. Obviously from a survival perspective, this place is a nightmare, but if we just temporarily forget about everything that wants to kill us, I think the Plains actually have a really pleasant vibe to them, so I wanted to create a build that felt very pleasant and cozy, and for those of you who are fans of the channel, you'll know that these are truly my favorite types of builds to do. As always, I put a lot of consideration to the location of my builds, and for this one I was fortunately able to find this nice little island / peninsula on the edge of the water. So again, the objective of this build is to make it feel small, quaint, and cozy, and I think the self-contained nature of this island helps convey that feeling. It just feels nice and enclosed and probably a little bit safer being out here on this island. So as we approach the house, some of you guys will notice that I utilized a very familiar bridge technique in how I created this nice parabolic shape with some of the custom placed core wood logs. So for those of you who've seen my Tree Town build, I did a lot of bridges in that build utilizing the same technique, although this is just like an inverted version of those where it's more of a convex shape. Nevertheless, although simple, I think it looks nice when we can incorporate some organic curved shapes into a build that, predominantly utilizes a lot of very straight lines and rectangular shapes, so I thought that served as a nice little entry onto the island. So we'll just start on the outside of the house first. I just did some general decoration to make the outdoor area feel like a bit of a work area. Being on a peninsula, I knew that water access was going to be a must, so on one side I basically just built a simple dock where boats can come up and drop off their supplies easily. And since we're actually on the water, I also like to include hanging fish as kind of a decorative piece to show that this is definitely a food source that perhaps people here rely on. So I've done this in a couple videos before, but again, all you need to do this is you place your cooking station and then place the fires underneath, and then you hang whatever meats you want and then remove the fires, and that allows you to keep the meat on there without it burning. So it just leaves a nice kind of decorative piece that I like to implement in some of my builds. In the back, we just have a mill to process some of the barley that's being grown in the fields out in front. In the kind of like solitude of this singular house in the plains, I kind of wanted to make it feel like whoever lived here was able to live a sort of subsistent lifestyle where they grow and process their own foods. So a lot of different work areas back here, but as we continue around, we just have kind of like a back door, some more hanging fish here, and this works its way all the way around to kind of like the front or main area. For the structure itself, it's really not built on a very big platform. It's basically like an L shape that has like a 3x3 or, well, I guess 6x6 meter tower in the back. So I think the tower gives the illusion that the build is much larger than it is, but it's rather compact, which I like. There's some nice detailing of the walls on the outside where I've created a bit of depth with the window frames and then added some extra beams just to make sure the wood walls didn't look too flat, which is something you always want to avoid when dealing with your walls. But yeah, just making sure you have a bit of depth and then it doesn't just sit flat on any component. So for the roof, I did add some stylized points at the end, which I think add a bit of flair, so I just added the beams and curved them one tick each time. I'm gonna be honest, I'm not exactly sure how I feel about it, because sometimes I look at it and think that looks pretty cool, and actually sometimes I look at it and I don't know if it looks a little too busy sometimes, but perhaps that's just like a builder getting a little bit too much in his head. So if you guys have any thoughts, definitely let me know, but that's kind of what I decided to go with the final design for it. So if we head on to the interior of the house, this is actually probably my favorite part of this build because I just think it really captures the coziness vibe I was going for. So as you can see, there's not really a whole lot of space here, but it has the essentials with the dining area split out on this side, and then kind of like a cooking space with supplies on the other, with nicely framed stone fireplace, which feels really warm and welcoming. So we utilized a lot of like the kind of the wood gate doors to create some cabinets just for storing some other supplies, and in the corner we have a small little space with some books on some shelves. Well, they're not really books, but what I've actually done here is they're just item stands that are custom placed to look like books. And so when I do this, I always want to make sure that I vary the heights of their placement to kind of give it a much more organic, natural feel that maybe different types of books are on these shelves. But I just think that's a really nice detail that is pretty easy to incorporate into a build. So you might also notice that I have some various flower boxes decorated throughout the interior. Some of you may be familiar with this technique, but what it really is just item stands that have the Grey Dwarf Brute and Shaman trophies stuck in them. So the Brutes give you that little flower at the top of it, and then the Shamans give you the more branchy looking boxes, but also just a nice design technique to add to a space to make it look a little bit more homey, a little bit more cozy. So we do have an upper floor here that leads to the balcony in the front, but I kind of like how this is kind of cut directly through a house like this. I just think it looks really interesting. I don't like how we covered up the entire floor with this next level. It's kind of just like a partial second level, but I just think it looks really interesting. So if we hop up it, we just have just a little sitting space up here, but then just a nice view off this front little miniature balcony, which I really like. In the back, we have our bedroom at the base of the tower with our signature bunk beds, which is really helpful when you're doing compact builds. The bunk bed idea is just a really nice way to be able to fit multiple beds within a limited space. We have some chests here to keep our gear and some item stands to put our weapons, but it feels nice and cozy, and I like that we can still peer into this kind of kitchen and common area, so it makes the build feel a little bit more open and not as closed off, which can make it feel almost a little too crowded with these really small, compact builds. If we go up the ladder, it just leads up to the tower. This middle floor is kind of nice too because it, again, kind of opens up into the rest of the build, makes it feel nice and open. And then on the top floor, we have a great view of the plains and the sea behind us, so kind of up at the top of this tower. A little bonus, I did add this little balcony area that's kind of sits in front because, you know, it's all about the views when you're building in Valheim, but I thought that was a nice little nook. Maybe come here and sit and just kind of look over the farms, something like that. Anyway, that pretty much rounds out the build. I think it turned out really well, and we implemented some really nice elements to it and some nice build techniques. Another nice one to add to the portfolio, I guess you could say, but again, wanted to capture the potential beauty and kind of the coziness the plains could offer, and I think we successfully accomplished that, and it's always good to return to these smaller builds as well. Nothing groundbreaking here, but it's just pleasant and I think well executed, and I really like that. So hopefully you guys pulled some inspiration from this one. If you did, make sure you like and subscribe. I will catch you in the next one. Thanks.